Christ. Daily, we're to be ready and doing what God wants us to do, so you have that. But also being ready for things in our life. Jesus Christ talked, remember, in Matthew chapter 7 about having storms in life. And he says, the person who bases their life on the rock. And he says, the rocks are my words. And so the teachings of Christ, if we base our life on the teaching of Christ, when the storms and those events that are difficult to come in life, we will remain. We're going to be fine. We're still going to go through storms. They're still going to be tough. There are going to be some rugged days, but we will remain. And so you can expect that, once again, that storms are going to come. It said, and we covered the text a little bit in James chapter 1, consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And endurance have its perfect work in your life, that you may be perfect and entire, lacking in nothing. But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. You know, that tells us that we should, instead of be whining and crying and reacting poorly to events in our life that are tough, we are to grow in maturity and grow in endurance and make it to the end. When it says the word perfect or complete, it really is the idea of going to the end, because that word is the word telos, which means literally the end. Right. And so you go all the way through the trial or the problem or the event in your life, and you pray for wisdom. A lot of times it's just natural. We say, God, why is this happening? What's going on? Right. And we come to God and we ask for wisdom. Well, this week I have another message I really believe God wants for us, but it looks like it'll be next week or the week after. And as I was preparing, thinking about it and going through notes and things in my mind, Thursday I was praying, and I was praying through this last week's message and where we were, and I remembered I said we need to prepare spiritually and we need to prepare mentally. Amen. Well, I talked a lot about the spiritual, but there is a great tie-in with the spiritual and the mental. Right. Because as you think, so you are, Proverbs says. And as we think, the Bible says we're to think right. We're to think positive. We're to think good thoughts. So we'll cover that maybe next week. But right now, we want to make the tie-in here of the mental and the spiritual. So important. And so I've normally I don't give my messages titles, but today I have. It's your approach. Your approach. And the other, there's been a time back, I was looking at something and watching some little thing on TV, and it had this pro golfer, and he was actually an instructor now. And so he was instructing, and he talked about your approach. Right. And he talked about your approach to the ball. So you come up to the ball, and you have this, you get your stance, and you position yourself toward in that relationship between you and the ball and where the ball is. And then he says, you take your grip on your hands, your approach to this, and your backswing, and then your follow through, and all of that also includes your attitude. Right. And so he said, all of this is your approach. Well, we also have an approach to life. Amen. And how is your approach in life? How do you approach things? How do you look for things? How do you look your approach to events that are coming in life? We talked last week a little bit, and we continue with the thought, do you face things as problem-oriented or solution-oriented? And believe me, you're going to have storms, and you're going to have problems, so you might as well face them with God on your side. I would rather do more, everything with God on my side than to try to do it without God. Amen. Right? Yes. What a disaster that can be and has been in our lives when all of a sudden we realize we just haven't included God in this event in our life and God's will to be done in our life. Right. And so we need that. We need to be solution-oriented, And we need to see God in our life and be prepared. And so I want to give you a verse and try to make a connection between the mental and the spiritual for us today. Let's start with Philippians chapter 4:13. Probably almost everyone in this room either could quote it or knows it well. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. I can do all things. Does he mean that? Yeah, I think so. Does he mean that the result will always turn out the way we want it? No. Does it mean that everything will always turn out, fantastic or something? And people, a lot of Christians are looking for the easy street verse. The message that everything will always turn out good. That's just not the way it is. But we know all things work together for good to them who love him. Amen. Love God, right? And to them who are called according to his purpose. So there's a qualifier there. There's a condition, which is that you love God. Amen. And that you've surrendered to his will and that you're serving in his will. So that's so important for us because we get lost. We like to claim just human nature for all good things to be really good. Right? We always want today, oh Lord, make today an easy day. Make it a good day. We don't want to go out to our car and find a flat tire. Nobody really plans for that or wants that. But they happen. And so I can do all things through him who strengthens me. The idea here is that God's going to help us through all things, and we're going to come to the end successfully. And so my prayer many times is that as we work through this, I see God's path, and that there is a favorable answer, that as we go through it, I can see that God's hand was in it. Even though we've had some really tough times, sometimes we look back and say, man, God was really in this thing. Amen. And so that is so important for us to have the right attitude, because if you're thinking that being a Christian is just all going to be easy, you're going to find some harsh reality one day. Right. You're going to think that everything always just turns out, rosy red or something, and it's just great. It's not. There's going to be tough events. Right. And so we need to prepare for it and mentally prepare for it. What this is talking now, the positive side, is that I can do all things. I can make it through this. Amen. I can. So you're either an I can or I can't person. Right. Which one are you? I want you to think about it now. You're either an I can or I can't person. And so I kind of got a little slogan with the message, we need to be an I can man. Amen. There was a POW, I read the story years ago, and when he was a POW in Vietnam, and they just were tortured, and they find themselves, their mind kind of drifting off and having struggles mentally and that. He was an officer. He was shot down, a pilot. And he used to golf in America. So he started, one thing to keep his mind focused and healthy, he started playing golf. And he would go to the first hole and he would see how he approached the ball and he would go through it. And his time that he spent there, he approached it and he increased his game in his mind. And I'm just going to make this up. I can't remember the exact things, but, let's say he scored an 80. And by the way, in golf, lower is better. For me, when I golf, higher is better. But he approached it that he got better in his game. And he went through this golf course and this golf course and this golf course. Well, when he got out, not only was there victory and so many things and so blessed, but one day he went back to play golf. And you know what? His golf game had improved. Amen. He actually came down to the point that he imagined him doing it. And so he approached it with a real positive attitude, you might say. And it was, I can do this. Now, there was another guy who I read a story on, and actually, you know Zig Ziglar, probably you've heard me mention it before. He's written several books, and he's a great speaker. He approached the thing. He says, you know, a guy will step up to the golf ball, and maybe you've done something like this, and he'll look there and he'll see where the supposed to go, where the next hole is, and he'll see a sand trap over here, and he'll see a lake over here, and he'll see trees over here, and he'll sit there and he'll eye everything, and then he hits the ball and it goes in the lake. And what do you think he says? Oh, I knew I would do that. Have you ever done that? You're looking at something and you're looking at something wrong and the chance of this or the chance of that, and you go, oh, I knew that was going to happen. But it's the negative thing. Do you know what I'm talking about? Come on, I want you to think about it, because I'm talking to you here. Well, that's what he said. He says, you know what? We program ourselves for failure. It's called self-fulfilled prophecy in psychology. And sometimes you will either program yourself for success or you will program yourself for failure. So if you get up there and you start looking and say, you know, a kid stands up to the plate and he strikes out and he comes back and he says, I knew I was going to do that. He was programming himself to miss. We need to program ourselves to hit. And so we need to get the message from God here is that there's a reason we can make it. Because I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's why we can. On our own, we might fail on a lot of things. Everyone here has tried things on their own. But listen, life is always better, always sweeter, always with more success. And we're going to look at some other verses that if you have God on your side. When you pray in your closet or pray at home, you definitely do not leave God at home. Make sure you take him all day long with you. And on every event, in every situation, you take him home. I want to make this application very strong, but first I want to look a little bit deeper at this word, at these words, because it's actually saying something more powerful than what you see in English. And a lot of times, you know, when I exegete a text for you, you see that there's certain words that are intensified or called superlatives, and they make it stronger than what the English language is actually portraying sometimes. Well, this text is very strong. It's stronger than what we're seeing. I can do all things. The show is school. School is the word. This is the word that's there in the original language. And it's actually the word for power or for being strong or for strength. And so when you look at this word, and by the way, this is a verb form. And what does a verb tell us? It's an action word, right? It's not a noun, person, place, or thing. It's not something modifying like an adjective or an adverb. It's an action word. And so it's the action of being powerful or being strong. That is the action of it. So if we look back at this verse, it says, I can do, it basically is saying this, I am powerful to do all things through him who strengthens me. That really intensifies it, doesn't it? You know, you are powerful. You are strong in Jesus Christ. Not only that, but it's a present tense. It's called a present active indicative. And so the present tense means what? Continuous action. It does not mean currently like our English word or concept of a verb, a present tense mean. It means continuous action. So you have a continuous action in your life. You need to remind yourself. So this is a mental activity that's tied to a spiritual truth. And there's the connection. So what it is this, is that we are to continually, in events in our life, realize I can do this. I can do it. And I am powerful to do this. And its active voice means you do it. And it's indicative mode, which means what? It's certainty. It's absolute certainty. Now, there's 4 modes in the Greek, as you know, and so there's other modes that say it's not certain. This verse says it is certain. So I am powerful to do all things through him who strengthens me. Let's show the word strengthen. It doesn't change things much because it means exactly what it says, to empower. Dunamao, or dunamis, you've heard me say many times before, is a word to mean strength or power again. And that from the word dunamis, which is the noun form, we get our English word dynamite from. And so this is definitely talking about power, but it's his power through him who strengthens me. And see the epsilon nu here, it looks like an EV, but it's an EN. That is an intensifier, and so God really empowers you. It's kind of like the verse when it says in John chapter 10, verse 10, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. That's what happens in life. But I came, Jesus says, to give you more an abundant life. Amen. And once again, that word abundant there is not even just abundant. It's actually super abundant. Right. It's just kind of odd maybe to translate it that way. And so Jesus came to give us victory. He didn't come to give you defeat. He came to give you victory and to empower you. So as we look back at the verse again, 4:13, William, 4:13, I am powerful, I am strong to do all things through him who strengthens, who empowers me, would be probably the best way to say it. And it's an intensive form of empower. Wow. That makes this really something. And it doesn't mean that everything's always going to turn out the way we want to. Let me make sure we balance that out with life, is that we're going to go through something and it might be hard and it might not have every result that we want, but you're going to go through it and you're going to have a positive effect going through it. It's going to be favorable with God in your life to get through this thing. Very, very important. Now we need to stop to apply this. I thought the other day, I have a good example. I don't want to always mention my family, but it doesn't bother me that much, and I kind of tease them a little bit with it. But the other day, my daughter was struggling, and she's in college now, Michaela, and she's struggling with math class. So we want to apply this verse to math class. She is struggling with math, and she came home, and she sat down by me, and she starts to tell me she's having problems in math, and then she starts crying and said, I'm going to fail. Well, she knows failure is not a word I want to hear from her, and that she has to pass with good grades. And so we started talking about it, and I said, why? And she says, I don't understand. Now I said, well, talk to your instructor. Well, do something positive here. Let's find a solution. Talk to your mom. And she's going to talk to the instructor. Well, the instructor won't talk to me. Well, I believe the instructor probably will, but she hadn't tried. Right. And I talked to your mom. Okay, well, I'll talk to mom. And then she came and talked to me too another time, and we went through some stuff on percentages and that. But when she took the test, she came home, and after we worked, and oh, by the way, I asked her, how much time do you study? You all guessed it. Not much, if any. She's just going to class, hoping somehow he would just drill a hole in her head, pour the information in, and she got it. Take some special math pill. That would be cool if somebody could invent that. You'd be very wealthy. But it would take a math pill. Well, it doesn't work that way in life, does it? No, and so this text isn't saying, yeah, you just get easy street. God just all of a sudden becomes a great mama or papa and just gives you everything you want in life. He's not the Santa Claus who art in heaven. He's our Father who art in heaven. Amen. And he expects us to do things, and that the active voice and I can do, I am empowered, is that I have to do it. I have to take the action. I have to be strong. See, it's a choice whether you are strong or weak. It's a choice whether you whine or you consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials. So the events in life that we face sometimes, we have to make that choice to be strong in it and to realize that God is there with us. And when you go through bigger events and powerful things that seem to be against you, wow, you really need God. And if you've been on the sand, like Jesus said, then you're in a little bit of trouble. Because you're supposed to be on the rock in his teachings. Well, part of his teachings is that there's going to be storms, and you're going to be stronger and more successful in life if you're on the rock, which is his word and his teachings, than if you're not. And so it's very important then to be on the rock, on his teachings, to be positive, to face life. You're an I can man or an I can't. Which one are you? Henry Ford said something you probably know. It's probably the most famous quote of his. If you think you can or can't, you're right. And so I kind of want to apply this again in things that make sure we stop and say, am I the person that is afraid of failure, like Michaela was afraid of the test? By the way, she took the test. We'll find out this week, early in the week, how she did on it. But she said there was only a couple questions she couldn't answer. So hopefully the other ones turned out good for her. We will report. But, I mean, are you the type of person that faces these things and oh, no, and you go to pieces, or do you start looking and praying about it and seeking God and knowing that God is able to take you through this, because he can not just strengthen you, he can empower you. Very intensive form. So, I want you to help me out. What hard events are there in life that you face? And just, what is a hard event that you're facing in life, and you say, this is something that you need to be empowered in? Anybody? A new job. Good. That's the one that I had down here too. A new job. Sickness. Health, competence. Parenting. I have that down too. And I had sickness down, by the way. We're hitting all the ones I had down. What else? Weight gain. Oh, yeah. You know, it says, I looked like I lost it. And you turn around and they said they found it. Yeah. Well, I have lost, I've said this before, I have lost 200 pounds, but I gained back 205. So I'm worse off than I was before. Okay, what else? Anything? Struggles. Yolanda. Losing a loved one, absolutely. I didn't hear that. Relationships, very good. I'm sorry, only one per person, but that's okay. She's given 3 now, so drugs and alcohol can be a huge problem, right? Having victory over a bad habit. Pardon me? Addiction, yes, addiction. Anything else? What about some spiritual things? What about your boldness to share Christ with somebody? God says you can do it. Are you an I can or I can't man? Are you prepared? Are you ready? See, we said last week, there's several verses and situations. We need to be ready, but we don't get ready. We might not even get ready, as I said, for a flat tire. So we get a flat tire and we go look at it and go, well, it's flat. And the wise guy says, well, it's only flat on the bottom. So you say, but it's flat. You're not going to go anywhere, right? So you got to fix it. So where's your lug wrench? Where's your jack to jack up the car? Where's your spare tire? You might not have it. So, are you ready for events in life? Get ready. Your family has a cold or they're sick. Do you have the aspirin? Are you ready? The Old Testament, the one that they use in Matthew chapter 25, and it's used other places in the Bible. Does anybody know what it is? Being ready? Oil for your lamp. The wise woman makes sure she has oil for her family. She has oil for her lamp. so that when the lamp runs out, you put new oil in, you have your lamp lit. Are you ready? Are you ready? Mentally, and the mental ties in with the spiritual because the application affects you and impacts your life. Now I said we're supposed to be empowered, and so in each one of these things, we approach finances with there is an answer, and I can do this. A lot of times we get ourselves into the financial mess, right? How do we do that? Overspending. Charge. Yeah, they're like the military. Charge, you know. But, okay, what else do we do? Overspend? We don't budget. We don't plan. We don't plan for, if we have money, we just go ahead and spend it some. And we're not maybe overspending, but, you know, eating or putting, you know, getting too much food, clothes, too much food, too much other thing. And then when we have our tax bills come up, or our car thing needs repairs, we're not ready for it. So we need to do things in preparation. So that's what this mental preparation would include. And God would say in all these things, we should do them. A good text for that is Proverbs chapter 6, 6 through 11. And what it says for us in that is, listen, he says, look at the ant. And see, O sluggard, look at the ant, what it does. Has no overseer, no ruler in that, but it works and it gathers food and prepares. Now, what's it preparing for? The days it can't work. I tell you, right now, there are no basically ants in our house. We live in 10 acres, but you just wait, when they are ready to come back in the house and they're looking for grub, there's a line of them. There's no ruler that tells them to do that. Man, they line up all the way, and we try to find that line and how it got in the house and where it goes, you know, and they do it, but they're prepared for the rains. And they use all of my food to do it. And so we're supposed to, he said, look at them, what they do. They work hard, and they're in preparation mode. So we need to be in preparation mode, but the thing is that you certainly can do it. You are empowered. You are powerful that you can do this and go through it. You are powerful that you can witness. You are powerful. Some people say, I can't, and they talk about their marriage. I just don't know how I can make it in my marriage. You can. You can love again. You can forgive. And a lot of times it's just that we have to sit down and have a little talk with Jesus. And have that time that we look and we say, okay, I can forgive, I need to forgive. Matter of fact, I'm even commanded to forgive. And so here now, I forgive you. And so we can witness, we can forgive, we can love again. We can do the things spiritually that God calls us to do. And a lot of times we just kind of make up excuses, or we take the easy road, the lazy road, the lukewarm road, the comfortable road on not doing anything. If I had a choice sometimes, I do not want to go cut a dead tree down, you know. And I'm talking about it's not a small tree. It can be a whole day event. The trunks are this big and it goes up 30, 40 feet high at the ceiling. And that just is not something I just take pleasure in doing. And all the hard work that goes with it, and then splitting all the wood and all that, I would rather put it off. You ever put things off? You put things off until they're never done, right? And so we have to be ready, and we have to mentally prepare and know that we can do it. And God says, well, I want you to look at the attitude that I am powerful to do all things through him who empowers me. Look at it. Let's Ephesians. I'm going to jump to Ephesians 6, verse 10. Finally, my brethren, keep being empowered in the Lord and in the strength of his power. This verse says almost the same thing. It's talking about spiritual warfare, but something here that's important. It's imperative mode. What's that mean? That's the mode of command. And so we're commanded to be powered. Did I give you 1 Corinthians 16:13? Okay, look it up. Give me Luke 1:37 right now. For nothing will be impossible with God. Wow, you know, Mary, it's hard to imagine this, but all of a sudden being told, hey, you're going to have a little boy, and we're going to call him Jesus, or he shall save his people from their sins, Matthew 1:21. And they're looking, and John the Baptist's wife, and all this, and God has a message for him. What's that message? God can do all things. I love the text. It's in Psalms 15, I think it's 115, verse 3, matter of fact. And a little girl was challenged, a little junior high girl was challenged in school one day, and the teacher said something, and so God can do everything. Yeah. And the little girl said, oh, God can do anything because there's no one stopping him. See, there's no one can challenge God. Right? Romans 8:31. Why don't you give that one? I know I have that. Oh, okay, let's stay there for a minute. Rise up. No, that's not the right one. That is not 1 Corinthians 16. Oh, okay. Rise up from sleep. Stand firm in the faith. Be the man. Be strong. 4 verbs in that verse. 4 verbs. All 4 of them are imperative mode. Every one of them. They're all commands. But the last one, be strong, is a little bit odd. It's a passive voice. And I forgot to tell you, the Ephesians 6:10 is also a passive voice, which means what? It means you don't take the action, you receive it. Our power that we have spiritually, we receive from God. We cannot do things in the flesh. We try a lot of times. We try to do it on our own power. We just say, well, I'm going to get in and I'm going to work hard and I'm going to get it done. I think we need to get in. I think we need to work hard. I think we need to get it done, but we need to do it in His power, not our own. That's why we run out of power. That's why we get burned out, and sometimes burned out spiritually, because we're just gutting it out, grinning and bearing it, going to work hard, but we forget the spiritual connection with God. It doesn't say, I can do all things by myself. It doesn't say, I don't need God. You and I need God. And so we need here then to be powered, and this is telling us. I think I gave you Romans 8:31 just a minute ago, right? What therefore shall we say to these things? If God is on our behalf, then who is against us? So all these events that could be bad, if God's on your side, you got it. You got the victory because He is there. Matter of fact, that's what He says, 1 John 5:4. William, 1 John 5:4. Because everything having been born of God is overcoming the world, and this is the victory that overcame the world, our faith. Wow. This word overcoming and this word victory, you know it. Anybody remember? Nike. Nike shoes. That is a Greek word. It's actually pronounced Nike. And Nike means to overcome, to prevail, or to have victory. And so they named the shoe, wear my shoes and you're going to have victory. That's the idea. You're going to prevail. So here, the idea is, this verse is that we are going to overcome the world. We're going to have struggles in it, but we're going to be able to prevail. We're going to do okay. Now, if you look at Joseph's life, for 13 years, it was a mess. And what do we see? His brothers sold him into slavery. He went into slavery for years. Then he was lied about and attacked, had a spiritual attack, and with Potiphar's wife. And he did good, but he did good, and he was thrown in jail for it, right? He went into the Pharaoh's prison. And then he was there for years. And then he did good to everybody. He did good to Potiphar. He did good to the jailer, the head jailer. He put him in charge of everything. And he's still in jail. And finally one day they had a need. The finally one day is important. Because if you hang in there, the finally one day comes. So don't have to be good for nothing. Every now and then I joke around and say, well, how did it go? I said, well, I guess I just have to be good for nothing again. Because right now it doesn't look good. You know what I mean? You get through something and you think, gosh, it's just not going well, but I tried. I'm doing everything God I can do. You keep hanging in there. We might talk about that next week more. But look, this verse is telling us very clearly that I am powerful to do all things through him who empowers me. I'm an I can man and not an I can't. And so we will suffer and go through some hard times, but we make the decision and mentally we prepare that we know that I can get through this thing because God's that powerful. I can get through, and we try to teach our kids and Michaela, I can get through this math class because God can help me. I can get through my finances because God can help me. I can get through job hunting because God is there with me. I can get through the raising of children because God is with me. Sometimes you wonder, but God is there. I can witness. I can lead someone to Christ. I can present the truth of God to somebody because God is with me. I can forgive even though inside I feel like I can't forgive. Inside I feel like I can't love this person. Matter of fact, I can't stand them. But through God, I can do all things. And we have to realize we've got to stop saying I can't and start saying I can. There was a church who was really suffering. And funny, I don't remember. It was years ago I heard this story. And I can't remember all, but they got attacked, I think, from the city or something, and they were just really going through it. It was a large church, and it was awful. And the pastor had been away. I don't know if he'd been on vacation or something. He came back, and the thing was a mess. So he got up, and he asked them if they knew the song, "Everything's All Right in My Father's House." Have you ever heard that song? And, of course, they did, and so he sings it. And this is it. Everything's all right in my Father's house. In my Father's house. In my Father's house. Everything's all right in my Father's house. Where there's joy, joy, joy. You know it? When we're going to sing that right now. But let me tell you what happens. He sings it to them. And I believe when he said joy, when I say joy, you say sweet. So when the men say joy, the women say sweet. So they sang it, and it started off really soft, really hard. I can't remember all the circumstances, but it was a disaster. And you didn't feel like singing. Have you ever felt like not singing? Yes. Have you ever come to church and there's communion and you feel like you don't want to take communion? Well, it was tough. So they sang it. And the second time it was a little stronger. And the third time it got a little stronger. By the fourth or fifth time, people were shouting it out. And they got the message. Because you know what, my friend? Everything is all right in my Father's house. Amen. Everything is all right with God today. Yes. He is not under attack. Yes. He is not threatened. There's not a problem with God. No one's going to overthrow him. He is the king of the mountain, and he's going to remain that, and that's just the way it is. Amen. And it'll be that for everything. Amen. So let's try singing it together and see if we get it. Everything's all right in my Father's house. In my Father's house, in my Father's house, everything's all right. In my Father's house, where there's joy, joy, joy. Everything's all right in my Father's house. In my Father's house, in my Father's house, everything's all right in my Father's house, where there's joy, joy, joy. You know, it is. And that's why we can do all things. Because everything is all right. We forget that. We live life like it's not. We come to church and we say it. We can come to church and we can talk about it. But when the big trial hits, we can go to pieces. We can lose sleep. We can struggle. I've struggled this last week with the problem, but I kept reminding myself, it was a mental challenge. God is in control. And somehow, God is going to deliver. I don't know the path. I don't quite know how it's going to happen, but I'm looking for deliverance. Amen. Let me tell you today, everything's all right with God. Is it with you? Amen. Are you an I can man or an I can't? Because I am powerful to do all things through Him who empowers me. Let's pray. On events in your life that you can think of right now that have been tough and maybe that you're going through now, are you an I can man? Or are you an I can't? Are you quick